Hey guys, Allison here. Well, today I want to talk to those of you who are struggling emotionally with pain from the past. And of course, that's what brings a lot of people in therapy. There's things from the past that either their own mistakes or mistakes of their parents or whatever it is that were painful and we're struggling to get over. Here's something I'd like you to think about. You can't know what you don't know. All right, let me repeat that. You can't know what you don't know. A lot of times when we look back at mistakes that we've made, maybe a mistake in relationships or, mistakes at work, whatever it is, sometimes we just didn't know any better. And I think one of the things that I look at, particularly when we look back at our parents who may have not been what we needed them to be, they may have made some big mistakes, right? Maybe they didn't know how to meet your needs. Sometimes we look back and say, well, how old was your dad at the time? And you might find he was 19. And you think to yourself, well, look at the average 19-year-old today. Well, how were you when you were 19? All right. Sometimes we just don't know. And particularly in relationships, we tend to repeat the patterns we've seen in our family relationships. So, or, the examples of, let's say, marriages that we've seen, and maybe they were broken marriages. So we saw a way of relating to one another and not necessarily understanding the needs that the other party had or that your children had, right? So if we look back and say, well, you can't know what you don't know, forgive yourself. If you've made mistakes like that, where maybe you didn't treat somebody right, maybe you didn't understand the needs that somebody had. Now, I'm not talking about the mistakes that we knew were wrong. We did things we knew they were wrong. Those things need to be confessed and repented of. And we need to kind of get to the root problem of why you would have done those things. Right? Was it pride? Was it lust? Whatever it was, most often it comes from some kind of brokenness. We need to kind of look at that and really look for healing. So not to say, okay, I did these things that I knew were sinful. It's still forgivable, and it's still something that you need to bring into therapy to kind of get under, to understand where it came from and to heal some of those original wounds. But that being said, that you can't know what you don't know. All right, so to forgive yourself there, and forgive your parents maybe who, they were young when they raised you. They didn't necessarily know the things that we know now, or that you know now, or that you think they should have known. Can't know what they don't know. But once you do know, right, once we start to learn, what are we going to do with that? All right, I think that's the important question. Once I learn how I should communicate better, how I should be more patient, or how I have to really understand that men have different needs than women, or women have different needs than men. Once I understand that, now what am I going to do with it? All right. So again, if you're struggling, and I know so many people, they just keep beating themselves up, but sometimes you didn't know what you don't know. All right. So you can't know what you didn't know. But once you learn, and this is, I think, the benefit of seeking out a good Catholic therapist, because not only do we want to do that work to kind of understand where maybe some of our negative behaviors do come from, where they're rooted, right? Maybe there's a selfishness because we never had our needs met. We don't know how to do it in a way that can benefit both sides of the party. Sometimes we just never learned it. We haven't seen any example of that skill, and that's something that we can learn in therapy. But sometimes we need to just go back into those wounds, invite Jesus in to heal them, and we need to forgive and understand that, parents make mistakes. Sometimes big ones, sometimes small ones, and sometimes powerful ones, But I think if you look back at your own mistakes, first of all, that's humbling, to kind of recognize, like, hey, I did these things. And I can blame my parents, but I still did these things, And maybe there were factors that worked on them. Maybe their needs weren't met when they were young. Maybe they never learned or had a better example. So I think what we always want to do now is then focus forward. How can I do better? Now that I have this knowledge, what can I do with it to make my life and my relationships better? Right? But if you are struggling with that, if it's mistakes you've made, sins you've committed, please bring it to confession. Leave it there. It's so powerful. It's so powerful because you're meeting God himself in confession. You're meeting this God of mercy, this Jesus who died for that sin so that you can be reconciled to him. That's his goal. All right. And the same thing, maybe even if your parents are deceased and you're holding something against them, bring that to confession. You may not be sinful. Your feelings are not necessarily sinful. All right. But sometimes when we're struggling, that grace we receive there, and to ask God to give you the grace to forgive. And, Jesus told us very clearly what to do. Pray for those who hurt you. And it doesn't have to come from your heart, right? It may not be there at this point, but to say a Hail Mary, to say an Our Father, to do that on a regular basis, all right, will start that transformation process so you can be free. You can make better decisions. You can know more, act on what you know, and have a happier life, because that's what God wants for you, all right? He came, he died that we may have life and have it to the full. Believe that. That's what he wants for you. So I hope you find that helpful. Make sure you download the free report, What Every Catholic Should Know Before Starting Therapy, especially if you've never been in therapy before. A lot of good information in there on what to expect and how it works. All right, so I hope you find that helpful. God bless you. Make sure you like and share the video. I'd appreciate that.